Hello everyone, this is Bhavik Chokshi. Hope you guys are doing great. May 19, I hope you guys have started with your study leave and studying full-fledged. November 19 onwards, it's high time to start planning and preparing, managing articleship along with your CA final preparation. So, excellent. This video is mainly for helping you guys to plan for your financial reporting new syllabus paper. Okay, so this is one of the longest paper that you have in your study material. The old study material has around 7 modules. The new study material which is being updated has around 6 modules. So, it is one of the longest study materials that you have. So, a lot of times students do find it slightly difficult to plan for this paper. So we are having in detail discussion topic wise, the flow in which you should prepare as well as the time that is required. Great. So if you look at the study plan, in your first reading, the first time when you're preparing, probably along with your coaching or if you're self-studying, as and when you're preparing, the typical time gap that you should look at is around 150 hours. That is at max. For an average student, you should look at around 150 hours of studying for the first reading. The way in which you should plan your reading is, if you have gone through the institute's modules, I would be largely discussing in lines with that. So the way you would be planning your preparation, first you should pick up the most easiest of the preparation so that you get used to the subject and feel slightly more confident in the preparations and get into the flow. So we suggest you start with the topics in the module 7 or module 6 as the case may of the new study material. This comprises of all these simple topics like value-added statement, human resource accounting, carbon credits, e-commerce, integrated reporting. In May 18 as well as November 18, we have seen at least a 12 to 15 mark weightage coming from these. So these are extremely simple. At the same time, they do carry a good enough exam weightage. Typically, you would expect 2 to 3 questions at least out of these 6 topics. And I would strongly recommend you start from these topics. The time gap that we suggest is around 15 hours. So roughly around 2.5 to 3 hours per topic should be good enough, around 15 hours for your first reading. So the way we would suggest you to go around is, there have been close to 27 Ind ASs and around 3 accounting standards that you need to study. So the best strategy should be to alternate your preparation. Do some topics which are FR chapters and then go to Ind AS, then do some Ind ASs, then again go back to the FR topics. That way you don't get burnt out and dried out reading all theory topics of Ind AS. So after you finish the simpler topics of value-added statement, human resources, etc., it's time to go to the most important Ind ASs, the Ind ASs which are linked to assets. All these Ind ASs are currently in module 3 of your study material, Ind AS 2, 16, 23, 36, 40. We have also added the Ind AS on agriculture over here, that is 41, and the corresponding accounting standard on impairment. All of these are related standards. So it is very important that you read all of them together so that you develop a very good thought process. Something like property, plant and equipment, intangibles are very closely linked to standards like impairment and non-current assets held for sale, borrowing cost. All of these are related standards, the standards that we have mentioned. Typically, this is the most important of all the Ind ASs. May 18 as well as November 18, we have seen very good weightage coming from these topics, mock test papers, RTPs, a lot of questions coming from these. So we should at least expect a 15 to 20 mark weightage on this, and the time required is 25. Probably you can pull it up to even 25 to 30 hours because you're just starting with the Ind AS. When we are looking at the time gap per standard, roughly you should look at around 3 to 4 hours at max. 3 hours being the ideal point for the standards. Some standards like PPE will take more time, Ind AS 16. On the other hand, some standards like investment property, for example, will take a lesser amount of time, but on an average, target finishing each standard in around 3 hours. That is the apt time frame. Once you are done with the Ind AS on assets, that helps you a lot going forward in all the other topics. It's time to again switch back to the chapters of FR. We go to share-based payments. It's a very simple topic. Around 6 to 8 marks of a guaranteed weightage that you get in your exam, both May 18 as well as November 18, would not take as much time. Honestly, 8 hours are good enough to finish this topic at a go. Following which, you go to the the most difficult topic that you have in your study material, and the most interesting, I would say, financial instruments. Now, we have been fairly generous. 20 hours is a good amount of time for preparation. 15 to 18 marks of guaranteed weightage. The sums over here are not very long. However, it does take a lot of time to understand the concept in detail. So, if the need be, I'm absolutely fine if you take this 20 right up to 25 odd hours as well, just for one topic, because it is very important and it is extremely scoring. You're getting 25, you're getting around 15 to 18 marks, and these are relatively smaller questions, unlike consolidation and business combination, which would be very long questions. Relatively smaller questions. Do this very well, the chapter on financial instruments. Okay, then you again switch back to indices. So we are done with the index on assets. Now we go to the index on liabilities, disclosures and other items. This is currently appearing in the module 4. Probably Institute is rearranging the modules as we speak, but this is currently in module number 4. These indices, few of them are quite tricky, like the employee benefit standard, the income tax standard are relatively tricky. So these might take slightly more time, but other standards like provisions and contingencies, segment reporting, etc. are fairly straightforward. Again, on an average, we count around 3 hours per standard. Some standards might take an hour or two more, some standards might take an hour or two less. So that is around 20 hours. Weightage 12 to 18 marks of weightage expected from these group of standards. Then you go to the two lengthy topics that you have, both of which are interconnected. By now you should have a very good sense of all the items that are appearing in the financial statements and a very good picture of the overall financial statements. And as a result, it's preferable to do business combination and consolidation at the end, once you have a very good grip of the overall framework in Ind AS when you have to prepare full balance sheets for these topics. So we start with business combination first, because it has some concepts of goodwill, non-controlling interest, etc., which are helpful for your understanding in consolidation. Business combination comes around 5 to 10 marks. Items like reverse acquisition, demerger are very important in business combination. So do that properly. And then we move to holding company accounts, the part on consolidation. Now this is a very important topic, something which I would strongly recommend you to do on pen and paper to get a flow of the solution. These are going to be long questions, and as per May 18 and November 18, these are quite certainly going to be compulsory questions. And as a result, it is advisable to do at least the initial part of these questions, initial few questions on pen and paper, so that you understand the flow of solving. We have kept around 25 marks, 25 hours, guaranteed weightage of around 16 to 20 marks, of which 16 marks would be the compulsory weightage. When we are looking at consolidation over here, we are referring to consolidation both as per accounting standards as well as Ind AS, because both of which is applicable. Having said that, May 18 and November 18 have both asked us full-fledged consolidation questions on Ind AS only. So the Ind AS consolidation is more important. Having said that, we should also refer the consolidation as per accounting standards as well. Okay, and lastly, once we are done with this, all the other Ind ASs that are left, which are currently in module 2. So these are relatively simpler Ind ASs. Once you are in the flow, you would not invest a lot of time. You know how to read it faster. They are not very difficult, at least most of them, to get a grasp on. So all these standards I would roughly put around a 2 hour per standard cap. Certain standards, specifically the new standard that will come in Ind AS 115 on revenue, is something which is very important. This will also come for around 12 to 18 marks, and that ways we try to break down our total 150 hours. So once you are clear with how we should study for the first reading, I've just made a flow on how you should go through in the first to the second and then the final reading before the exam. So when we're doing your first reading, when I say the first reading, probably something that you do along with your classes, or once your classes are done, you read it and understand it for the first time. So this should take, as we have suggested, around 140 to 150 hours. At this point, I'm not going to advise you to leave any of the topics. You are supposed to study these topics. This is the first revision. Remember, the institute can ask anything. This is your first paper. You don't have a problem of studying limited things the day before your exam. You'll have ample time even the day before your exam. This sets the tone for your other exams. Do not take a chance with your first paper. Do go through all the questions that you are studying from, the material that you are studying from the time being. At present, do not refer 10 different sources. It would add to your confusion. We want to get the method of solving our mind clear before we look at other varieties of questions. Do from where you have studied, where you have done coaching, do it from there, and it should be very helpful. Solve few questions in each topic on pen and paper. At this point, I can understand that you cannot solve each and every question on pen and paper, but accounts being something where a process is very important. It is important that you know how to solve it on pen and paper and not just doing it directly on the calculators. You might get answers directly, but you might not know how to make working notes present format. So it is very important in a particular topic. So if a topic has, let us say, 20 questions, I would recommend around 10 to 20%, that is 2 to 4 questions you should try to solve at least on pen and paper, depending on the time that you have. But 2 to 4 is the bare minimum, 10 to 20% on pen and paper. Refer class notes at this stage and refer ICI material on a very selective basis. So focus on your coaching material, and if you're self-studying, yes, then you should look at the institute's material only. The institute's material over here is very comprehensive. The content is very good, but remember, it is extremely exhaustive and comprehensive. So in our notes, I can at least vouch for our notes, you have covered almost every concept that is there in the institute's material. So if you're reading questions from there, it should suffice. May 18 and November 18 both have been sufficient. Refer institute's material on a selective basis. So if you are stuck up, if you do not understand a particular concept as well, for example, what is a cash generating unit in impairment, you're not able to understand it as well, use the institute's material as a reference guide. Do not read everything that is there in the study material. The parts which you are not understanding, you need more examples, more practice. That is the part you should read from the ICI's material. Other than that, focus on your coaching notes for the time being in your first revision. Okay, after that, the second revision typically happens at the middle of your study leave. So when you're in the study leave, in the middle period, in the first 2 months, probably of a study leave, you would go through FR in its entirety. Again, this is when the pieces fit together. If you do not remember a lot of stuff that you have earlier read, it is absolutely fine. When you're doing it for the second time, you tend to forget stuff, but it is not that you don't know how to solve it, is just that you need a little more practice. And hence, when you're reading it, I would again require you to revise all questions. At this stage, you need to also prepare for the main exam. So mark out the important questions, as in when you're reading it, certain questions you feel are very important, just mark them off. Just highlight them with a different color highlighter, so you know in your final revision the day before the exam which all questions to focus on. There are certain questions which are repetitive in nature. These are just intended by the institute as well as the coaching institutes to get you clear on the concepts, to help you in practicing more. On the day before the exam, you don't need to refer all of them all over again. And as a result, you can cancel out the questions which you see are repetitive when you're revising it for the second time. Refer RTPs and MTPs, the mock test papers and the revisionary test papers issued by the institute, should be easily available on the institute's website as well. For the last 3 attempts, it is very, very common to see at least a question or two in your main papers always popping out directly from the RTPs or from the mock test papers. So please do refer the RTPs as well as the mock test papers for the last 3 attempts as well. Okay. Now the thing which I would like to draw your attention over here is solving an ICI paper. I know we plan and we think that we should solve a paper. We refer to 10 different institutes for joining a test series. Remember, solve the institute's paper. So if you are giving May 19, November 18 paper is the best proxy for you. FR is undoubtedly the most lengthiest paper to complete in your exam. It is the most lengthiest paper, having along with coupled with the fact that being the first paper, you would be a bit nervous, and hence it might eat up a bit more of your time. It is very, very important to finish the paper, or at least 90 to 95% of the paper in a comfortable manner. There might be 5 to 10 marks which you might in any case not be as comfortable solving, but the remaining paper you should be able to complete. Again, I'm reiterating the fact, financial reporting paper, you can ask your seniors as well, is undoubtedly the most difficult paper to complete in your exams. A good student manages to write around 80 to 85 marks in a normal FR paper because it is extremely lengthy. So what we need to do very well is we need to plan our time properly, not just while preparing, but also while writing the exam. As in cricket, we say you should end up playing all your 50 overs. You should, in a similar way over here, give at least attempt all the 100 marks. You will not know this unless you write the paper, and the most opportune time to write the paper would be after your second revision. You would have probably invested around 8 to 10 full days in revising FR properly. By this stage, your FR concepts should be good and you should be capable of writing a paper. The first revision, remember, I know happens in a phase-wise manner. You would do some topics, then after a few days do some other topics. At that point in the first revision, you're not well placed to write a full-fledged 100 marks paper. A second revision is the best time to write the 100 marks paper without fail. Come what may, the day you finish your second reading, invest 3 hours in an exam condition, take 15 minutes reading time, and then start solving. You would know how to manage your time. Typically 180 minutes are there, 3 hours, and 100 marks. Typically the rule is you would take for every mark around 1.8 minutes. So a 10 mark question should get over in 18 minutes. You would know this only if you try to practice the ICI paper. Okay, again, in terms of the time, the second reading should take around 80 to 90 hours. That is roughly around 2/3 of the time that you would take in the first reading. And then the final reading. The third reading is the reading that you do before your exams. Now in financial reporting, you do have the luxury of a very long third reading period, and I would strongly recommend you to use that in a lot of with a lot of precision. Take around 6 to 7 days, the day before your exam. For all the other papers, we don't stand a choice. We just have a day and a half to prepare. For financial reporting, we have more days. 6 to 7 days is the apt time for you to revise for the preparation before the exam. I have already uploaded a separate video to help you on the final day preparation or the final phase of preparation. But do invest 6 to 7 days. At this stage, you would be reading the filtered questions that would have filtered while doing a second revision. Okay. Now, so that was about your preparation for financial reporting. In case you are looking for coaching, we do offer coaching in both live batches and online form. So the details about the live batches are over here. For November 19 onwards, the regular batches start from February 2nd week. Weekdays and weekends batch, the fast track batch, which is specifically for May 19, it is a full coverage batch, covers around 120 hours of teaching. All concepts would be covered. So this is in 15 days. We get done in around 2 weeks, starting from 20th of January. These lectures, in case you are out of Mumbai or in case you don't want to travel, are also available in pen drive and Google Drive format. The latest recordings for May 19 onwards will be available from 15th of January, and the fast track would be available from 10th of February. Okay, in case you have any problems, feel free to get in touch with us. Hope this video was helpful. Please do like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a great time.